Welcome to Alumni Connections. I got the family picture here. I meant to pop this up. All right. So, Rodney Garcia is with me today. I'm so excited to have you on the show because you've been somebody that not only has just a amazing history with the program when you were in school, but you've maintained the relationship with students and especially UB post A. Philip Randolph graduation. You've done some big things in your life. Welcome to the show today. How you doing, Rodney?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, man. I'm gonna put on here this song. This will get us in the right mood here. I have a little bit of a theme song for this show. I was just telling you before we jumped on, I got kids and stuff and pickups and everything. So forgive me as I stumble through my process here. But one of the things that's just really cool is this show is about connecting alumni to each other. And so in that spirit, let's see if I can get this thing going.
There we go.
This is the Alumni Connections Project. We all know Randolph is better than the rest.
There you go.
Progressive, still out of rep. A. Philip Randolph Campus High School. But this is not a test. You should say it with your chest. Be proud of your origin. And if you are proud, support it then. Stronger together through unity. Better together. Let's build the community. Randolph isn't a school or a building. It's a legacy inside of your past. It's your identity. So show some pride. Alumni Connections sponsored and brought to you by SBI, CCPI. SoundDownBusiness.org. SoundDownBusiness.org. The journey doesn't end with graduation and prom. The journey doesn't end with graduation and prom. The journey doesn't end with the journey doesn't end. This is the Alumni Connections Project. This is the Alumni Connections Project.
Randolph.
A. Philip Randolph.
So that should be bringing back the memories right about now.
Yo, I love the Randolph part. Those are the main showcases that end of the showcase when you hear that big roar. You know what I mean? I love it.
All right, so that's the theme song officially done. Got that over with. All right, right into you. So tell us what you're doing right now. I know you're doing some big things. I know that you are very much in the mission of life that I am in terms of providing opportunity and education in the soil, in the roots, doing it every day. Talk to us about what you're currently doing, then we'll work backwards and get some of the Randolph journey to where you are now.
Absolutely. So right now I'm currently an IT operationals manager in District 8 at Longwood Preparatory Academy. It's a small school made up about 325 students. It's a 9 through 12 school in the South Bronx. Also the head baseball coach at the school, varsity baseball. We're 3-1, lost a tough game yesterday. But we'll be okay. We're still tied for first in the division. Also with that, I'm working on my school practicum internship. So I'm transitioning from IT to school counseling. And currently I am interning at a middle school in District 9, New Ventures High School, 09MX219, I believe. That's the DBN. But yeah.
the crazy numbers.
I got to know stuff like that to plug it. You know what I mean? You never know who's listening or watching,
So just before we jump into, the history, so just so we have this frame of reference and context, what's just been, and just give us a little piece because I know we'll get into it later, but what's the driver behind doing this education thing, being in the New York City Department of Education, working there can't be the easiest thing in the world. You're not only doing that, but you're furthering your education, getting another master's degree to go down this school counseling path, interning at another school. What's driving this?
I think for me, it's just knowing the fact that my parents instilled education early on. You know what I mean? It was very much in our household. It was in the fabric of our household. I grew up with Caribbean parents, so they're very strict when it comes to education. It's not an option, but it is a choice, and they understand that the choice gives you doors that can be opened through education. You know what I mean? And early on, it was just always in that fabric from my oldest brothers to me to my little brother. And my dad always used to say, the more you learn, the more you earn, the less work you have to do. And, you know, education is that pathway. So that's how we was brought up. And for me, I grew up in the public education from elementary all the way through high school, going to CUNY College. So for me, it's just about giving back and being able to help the youth. And, you know, that's the best way I see it.
That I love that. And I'm glad we'll get back into this, because I know there's more around it, because I know educating yourself and then taking that and educating others is a whole big different thing. So that belief structure around, you know, what you might owe to the community and seeing the problems. And I know, because there's been so many alumni and everybody's got different stuff in their life, but you've definitely made time to come back and give back to the UB team, to SBI. It's been a big deal for me. It's been a big deal. I know it's been a big deal for others, but it's been a big deal for me in seeing that. So I know there's special things driving that in you. Talk to us a little bit about the journey, right? So where were you in junior high, and how did Randolph get on the map for you, on the radar, so to speak?
Yeah, so I attended Robert F. Wagner Junior High School, which is in Midtown Manhattan. So it's on 76 between 2nd and 3rd.
I'm so glad you said Wagner, because I grew up in Midtown. So Wagner I actually knew about.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, growing up in so I grew up in the Bronx, like, just full transparency. Like, I grew up on Burnside. So a lot of people would question, like, how did you end up at Wagner? That's not your zone school. My dad, when we moved to New York, he was very much into education, was like, you know, I want you guys to go to the best schools. I don't want you guys to go to your zone school and get caught up with, like, you know, different things within the neighborhood. He had found like a way in to the Department of Education. I think he was like working in finance or whatever. And he had fostered a relationship with a lady that knew how to like do the enrollment for the Office of Enrollment at the time. And we ended up going to elementary school. You're talking about four Black kids in the 80s going to school in Midtown is unheard of. You know what I mean? So we're going to PS 59 on 57th between 2nd and 3rd. From there, we was able to go to Robert F. Wagner because they're within the same zone. You understand what I mean? We don't live in the zone, but because our grades was able to kind of like carry over, we was able to end up in Robert F. Wagner. How I got the A. Philip Randolph is funny, because my oldest brother, all four of us went to Robert F. Wagner. My oldest brother went to humanities, ran track, never did baseball. My second brother, Raphael, he actually went to Randolph, class of 97. At the time, you used to be able to do like middle school was 6 through 9, and then you would go to high school from 10 to 12. Now, Randolph had 9th grade, so I opted out early after 8th grade to attend A. Philip Randolph for my 9th grade. And it was mainly due to the fact that, one, my brother was there. Two,
what's your brother's name? Because I wasn't even aware that you had a brother that attended Randolph.
Yeah, Raphael Garcia.
Raphael, okay.
Yeah, so he actually went to Randolph. He was actually, if you do your research in history, he was the last graduating class in the auditorium.
Oh, wow.
So 1997 was like the last auditorium graduation.
And for anybody that's not Randolph initiated, if you don't know, haven't been through a graduation ceremony, I think almost it's every graduation ceremony since then. I don't know what it was, where you were in 1999, but I imagine it was over at City College.
In Shepherd's Hall. Yeah. So like that was like the last ceremony within the confines of the auditorium. It might have been maybe 97, 98, but if I'm not mistaken, it's definitely 97. I know by the time I was ready to move on, we was graduating out of City College. But when he went to Randolph in 95, I believe, or 96, I'm not too sure. My math might be off, whatever. I remember him having a conversation with me and was like, yo, dude, why don't you come over? You could play baseball. You could join the team. You could be part of the varsity team. So for me, like our upbringing was baseball. Like we're a very heavy baseball household. You know what I mean? So leaving Robert F. Wagner, obviously is middle school. You don't have an opportunity to play baseball at the middle school level. You played at the PSAL, which is the high school level. I'm playing travel ball. I get the opportunity to play with my brother. it was the first time that we'll ever get to play on a team together. And actually, let me back up. We actually played together for the first time in the Virgin Islands when we got the opportunity to play in 1995. So leaving to go was like, for me, so big because it was like we just played together in April. So you got a little caveat of a taste of like, wow, we could really kind of like be that, you're the catcher, I'm the second baseman. So we had like this whole dream of like playing with each other. So that's how I ended up in Randolph. You know what I mean?
And I love that. And I love doing these interviews because I learned so much because I'm in my own little world. I started interning in 1996. I was in and out of the school. Some kids I had a good relationship with, knew with a lot of, but really like you don't get until 2010 until I was like in students' lives and doing like SAT prep. And I was talking to mamas and dads and I really knew everything that was going on. So for us, we were like ships crossing in the night. And then we saw each other, Rodney's going to come in and help the UB team. Like, all right, cool. That's Rodney. All right. I see Rodney. All right. And probably giving folks a hard time as I was cracking the whip, like, hey, stop messing around, folks. Who is this? All that kind of stuff. And, you get that administrator role, which I'm sure you have a lot of fun with now in your role. So it's great. I never even knew that baseball was a super big passion for you. So I love hearing about this, and you've done some traveling around it. Did baseball continue? I know I'm fast forwarding here, but did baseball continue after high school at all?
Nah, after high school, I went through some personal problems. Like I said, full disclosure, I definitely.
But I mean, you're a baseball coach now, so it has come back.
It took me a long time to get to this side because when you're playing the sport, you've been doing it for so long. You know what I mean? Like I started playing baseball, like I was introduced to it at like the age of 4 or 5. You know what I mean? And you're talking about almost 15, 16 years of body of work that you've been playing this game. I don't want to say you fall out of love with it, but at some point, you start realizing like, okay, you have
where is this going?
Yeah.
Why am I spending all my time with this? Yeah, absolutely.
And the investment, and we're kids trying to figure out life, and your parents has a dream and a vision for you. But you as a child, you're trying to develop your own image and where you belong and where you fit. And then you realize, okay, this is not my dream anymore. This may be my dad's dream or maybe other people above me.
Yeah.
So you realize like, you start drifting and, we all end up hanging out with people that you're not supposed to be hanging out with and influential. And, you become bigger than what you think you are. And you start not listening to your parents and, you think you know more than what you know, and you fall into rabbit holes. You know what I mean? And
talk to me about that. So you're jumping into high school on A. Philip Randolph. What was your first impressions there, and how was that journey through high school for you?
A. Philip Randolph was very, for me, tough. And what I mean by that, it was, I think coming from middle school and kind of having like this 90, 100 mark grade, essentially going to high school where it's like 3,000 kids, you know what I mean? Like you kind of get lost in the shuffle. I never really kind of like was able to get my own group of friends because, my brother was there. He was like baseball team, Letterman, like, and I don't want to say like big shot, but he was like the hierarchy, you know what I mean? And then you walk in, insert yourself, and you don't realize you're stepping into the shadows of somebody else. And that's hard to kind of put your own footing down, especially when you have teachers and staff and other people saying, well, why are you not like your brother? Or academically, why you're not performing like your brother? Or baseball, why are you not like, and it's like you getting all those questions and you start to realize like, look, I'm not him, I'm me, and accept me for who I am. You know what I mean? And I think for me,
you don't see the good side of it, right? So the kid that doesn't have a older brother in the school, that's just walking in and is looking at you like, oh man, it's so awesome that he's got an older brother in the school. Yeah. But you're not in that mature mindset to realize the good side of it. You're just seeing the negative aspects of it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think you get caught up in the fact that you're trying to put your own stamp on your high school experience. But it's being overshadowed, you know what I mean? And it's not being overshadowed I don't think it was coming from a malicious intent or a negative feeling from the school standpoint, but it almost becomes that way in a sense because like, okay, when are you going to finally look at me and no longer him? Because we are.
It's the middle child syndrome, right? It's like, hey, I'm special. I'm special.
I am. So it definitely was a struggle coming into Randolph in the beginning.
And so how were the grades? Because I know, looking at your body of work, you get into college, City College, you graduate magna cum laude, you do that again for your master's. So you later on, you're definitely applying nose to the grindstone, getting the grades. What was going on in high school?
And high school was I wasn't the greatest student. Academically, I always was a great student. You know what I mean? I just wasn't performing to the academic standards of what I needed to perform to. So I'm not going to sit here and say like, I was pumping out hundreds in class. I probably was pumping out 100 in gym and art. You know what I mean? But academically, it definitely was a struggle for me in high school. It was classes that I just didn't attend. It was, I would say my two biggest people that I really leaned on throughout high school career was probably Mr. Fry.
Mm-hmm.
He ended up becoming my guidance counselor. He was my English teacher. So I would say Mr. Fry.
Either love or hate Mr. Fry, right?
Yeah, it's like it's no in between. You know what I mean? Mr. Fry, Mr. Dorset. Like that was definitely my guy.
Everybody loved Mr. Dorset. That was
actually related.
You have to be a bad dude to like to not like Mr. Dorset, right?
Yeah, we're actually related.
Are you?
We found out in a very funny way.
Don't tell me you showed up to the same barbecue.
Nah, we actually showed up to his mom's house and didn't realize.
Oh, wow.
As I said, in a very funny way. Yeah. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was definitely a struggle for me. It was definitely grades was probably at best mediocre. I wasn't applying.
And what were things that really you enjoyed about Randolph, and if there was a pet peeve that you had, what were the highs and lows?
I think the highs for me definitely was the first time I kind of was introduced to Charles Thompson. You know what I mean? Like that was the one person that, when he crossed his legs or he leaned back in the chair, like you knew you did something wrong. You know what I mean? Like, so as much greatness as you can bring to the table or as much greatness as you can perform on a stage, he was always big on academics. You know what I mean?
When did Thompson come into the picture for you during your Randolph experience?
I would say around 96, 97.
So was that was 10th grade?
So that would have been, like the end of my, because I started Randolph in 95. So I would say like the spring of my 9th grade. So the spring of my 9th grade year, that was like the first time we was introduced.
Well, that's good. You got in early on, because there's some folks that didn't get in there. And was that right away because of the United Brothers Step Team, or what brought you into the circle of Mr. Charles Thompson?
I think it was just trying to understand where this guy is coming from. You know what I mean? Not in a bad way. It was like, we had Muhammad Ali come to the school during my era, Roy Jones Jr. We had a concert for 112 before they blew up. And when I say like, it was like, okay, who is this guy? How is he connected? Like, how is he bringing in all these resources? And you don't really understand the magnitude of the people that you're really seeing. Like, obviously, Muhammad Ali is Muhammad Ali. Like, you know who Muhammad Ali is. You know what I mean? But just the mere fact that he's coming in, he's teaching us how to dress. He's making sure, like, we're having on a tie for career day. He's very big on making sure your resume is outlined. And just wanting that end of the year, because we didn't do like the winter showcase and then the spring showcase. Like now Randolph probably has like 3-4 shows during the year. We only had
I remember, because I started with Thompson, that spring semester of 96, as I was not really doing the right thing in my own high school experience and not graduating. I was getting involved with Charles and the college and career prep situation. And so like, and I was into the music side. So if you ever got like a cassette from Bad Boy Records in 1996, I was probably the guy that was on the phone making that happen to get the swag for the things that brought you into the cafeteria, the auditorium, to listen to Mr. Thompson go off about how you needed to get your sugar honey iced tea together to get your ducks in a row to get your future right.
That's Charles for you. You know what I mean? Yeah. I remember when they had the 112 show. I think, don't quote me on it, but tickets was probably like $5 to $7, and it like nobody could afford it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like you're talking about 1996, 97 for Christ's sakes. Like, you know what I mean? $7 is a lot of money, you know.
And we've always had that challenge. And then, having students sell tickets is like, all right, so I got my mom, I got my dad. Who else is going to buy this ticket?
And it's funny because there was the side door. So you have the entrance, which is up the common steps, right?
Yeah,
and then you have the side door, which is like by the way the parking garage is.
Oh boy.
So I remember the concert is going on, like security kicks us out. They have like the white shirt security, regular security, like everybody's like securing this place because it's like 112 is about to perform. And I'm like, yo, I need to get in there. Like, how are we gonna figure out a way?
I can picture this in my head too. I can picture the ball caps. I can picture the camouflage.
Whoever opened the side door, I don't know to this day who opened the side door, but we was able to go in through the side door and watch the concert. It was dope. It was just, just to be a part of that Randolph experience is nothing like it. You know what I mean? And
I want to put it, just kind of spotlight the excitement, right? It's, I think, and you can speak to this, being in the school that you're in, yes, classes should be exciting, teachers should be exciting, but the performance arts aspect that SBI brings into the school, the career days that SBI brings into the school. I remember my own high school experience. There's nothing like it. The excitement that it brings in, the change in dynamic through the school. Not to say that there aren't other schools out there doing amazing things and other programs, but I got to highlight, and it's fun when you bring it up because it's memories for you. But those kinds of things, when you bring them into the school, it really does bring some memory and excitement into the journey. It gives you some reasons why you want to show up and be in the mix and know people, because hey, there's things going on, right?
Yeah. And I think the bigger takeaway from everything is like, no one, like, we're not getting paid to do anything. You know what I mean? Like, we're students that's volunteering our time to stay after school. You know what I mean? And the fact that you got 150 kids that's willing to stay, and sometimes, like, when I first started performing at Randolph, we was there till about 6. Like, our curfew was like 6 o'clock. Boom, like that was it. That was the cutoff. To come back year in, year out, and to see, like, okay, we went from like 8 o'clock curfew to like 10 o'clock. The kids like rehearsed until like 11 o'clock. It's just like, are you serious? Like, you guys have a permit till 11 o'clock to be able to, to run over your craft. And, just to see from where the technical side has come from, to lighting, to, like, we used to put like the little smoke machine at the front of the stage and, all right, run down and we got to do this, and then run up the hallway and then do this. And then how do we cut the lighting? And then one color light, you know what I mean? Just to see where.
Yeah, it's the technical aspects have definitely improved. The raunchiness has gone down, though. The political side of it is like through the roof. I remember some of the shows that you guys did back in the 90s we could not get away with doing these days.
I love it. You love it. You push the boundaries, you know what I
mean? Things do change. It's really crazy. So that was the highs. What were the lows for you? I know you were battling a little bit with the grades, the being in your brother's shadow. Was there anything about Randolph that was like, oh man, I don't want to be in this building?
Yeah, I think for me it was like I dealt with my own personal family problems. My dad had ended up in federal prison.
Oh wow.
Yeah, during my transition into high school, he had always been my baseball coach. So that was tough in itself. And then dealing with my brother and then all his accolades that he was getting academically from Randolph, feeling like in the shadow. Kind of never feeling that.
And let me just ask, with the siblings, was it just you and your brother, or were there other siblings?
No, so I had older brother. He actually went to humanities.
Right, okay.
And then my little brother Raymond.
Yeah, and when I was in high school, because I went to school downtown, I was at School of the Future, 23rd Street.
Yeah.
Humanities was that school that we were like, oh, that's the, you don't want to go by there, right?
Yeah.
So you had a brother in humanities.
Yeah.
And who else?
He went to humanities. Richard Raphael went to Randolph. I went to Randolph. And then my little brother Raymond, he went to St. Raymond's Catholic School for Boys.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So Richard was an all-star track. I mean, he probably still have records at humanities to this day. He actually got a scholarship to run track at City College. Raphael got a full scholarship to Hunter. So he ended up at Hunter College out of graduating Randolph. When Raphael left, I felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulder. But I do think that more harm was done than good. What I mean by that, I think academically I was so underperforming, I didn't know how to get out. You know what I mean? And that's hard. Like if you're in the
I think that's something that so many kids fall into, right? And I think that's a commonplace in public school, especially with the big school, and I always talk about Randolph, the benefits of a big school. I mean, I definitely felt the absence of sports teams and additional resources, library, so many different resources that exist in a building like Randolph, because we were more of we weren't necessarily like a magnet or a charter school, but because we were a new school when I was going in from like 92 to 96, School of the Future, we didn't, we had very little resources, right? And so the beauty of a big school like Randolph, he's got all these different, a weight room. I never had a weight room in my whole high school, career. There's nothing, it's just, there was a gym, and you were lucky if you got some time on there to actually play with the actual piece of equipment, like a basketball or volleyball or something like that, let alone, something like a weight room. So definitely really crazy resources compared to a lot of people's public school experience in the city. School like humanities, I don't know, I've never been in that building, but I imagine because they were a big school, they had a lot of those resources. And then, years later, schools like humanities got broken up.
Yeah,
where Randolph still remains, right?
Correct. Yeah. Which is it's a jewel to have still. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're talking about humanities broken up. You're talking about DeWitt Clinton broken up. You know what I mean? Like,
and it's hard to bring resources. But I want to just go back to the grades. When you got a big school, and we talk about all this time with the 9th and 10th graders, if your grades go off, right, it just feels overwhelming to try to put things back. And people are going to tell you, well, you got to get your grades up because colleges are looking.
Yeah.
You're looking at that GPA, and you're looking at, it's like the baseball average. If you've been poor performing, like to bring that back to where somebody's going to pay attention to that, it just feels like such an uphill climb. Feels impossible to up that average. And so a lot of kids, because they don't have the support, they don't have the resources, rather than say, okay, I'm going to do my best. It's like, you know what? I screwed it up. There's no chance. I'm just going to, why am I going to try?
Yeah. And like I said, I tip my hat to my mom. My mom did a lot to try to talk to me as best as she could. But, when you're trying to make sure to feed a family of 5, including herself, and working round the clock, and, I can't blame her. You know what I mean? I got to take full blame for myself. I obviously, in the moment of it, or in that time frame of it, you're not thinking that way. You know what I mean? You just want to.
And you're going through the additional trauma, which so many students are. I grew up single father situation. I was going through the trauma, not having my mom around, and then the additional trauma or challenge for the single parent of like, all right, I'm a full-time parent. I got to hold down a full-time job. And my father was doing it, he just had me, but he got distracted during high school. He had stuff, people dying in his, in his circle and whatever. And it was hard for him to check the boxes, and he's doing it on your own. And so many parents are doing it on their own. I know I'm driven by that passion because I had a kid at 19 years old. And so I haven't been been able to be the father that I wanted to be to him. I have 4 children with my wife now, so I'm able to give back and be a little bit more present in their lives. But that regret and the hardship, you can't. It's one of those things that it just same kind of thing. It feels impossible, and it becomes impossible because of the situation, right? And I know that you had to be going through, and your brothers had to be going through trauma with your dad kind of out of the picture during that time. It had to be hard. And I've interviewed other students too, where they kind of put it on themselves. And I think obviously we all got to take personal responsibility, but if you got your mom and dad and the financial picture is sweet and there's tutors and, whatever research, it's hard to compare that journey to a journey where, things are a lot different, right? You're dealing with a lot of lack of resources and not having a family member in the picture. I've talked to folks that have their family member die, mother or father, during high school. And regret, right? They're filled with regret because they didn't perform in high school. But without the resources there, and I know that we're going to get into a little bit of that with the school counseling and stuff. Without that help, it's hard.
It is
for a young person going through that. It's really, really hard. All right, so keep us going here. So you're dealing with this. What does it start looking like as you're getting to junior and senior year? As you start looking towards the future? What does that choice look like? Are you applying to places? I know Thompson's in the ear with the applications. What did that end up looking like?
At this point, I'm just trying to figure out how can I graduate, and if I graduate, how can I graduate on time? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm no longer looking at even going away. I'm not looking at academically performing extremely well. It's just more so just getting by every day. You know what I mean? At that point, I had the conversation with my mom. I had, we had a long conversation after lying that I was still playing, that, I didn't want to play baseball anymore. It was tough because my mom just felt like that was the one thing that she wanted me to continue doing. I started, developing relationships, friends within the neighborhood, things that she just did not want to happen ended up happening. And, my mom always knew, like, playing a sport or being in an activity would always keep you out of certain situations. You know what I mean? I found myself in more legal situations than not. Nothing never severe enough to kind of like, fortunately, get me locked up, but little petty stuff. You know what I mean? Let's put it this way. What was petty then would not be petty now, which is crazy how the laws change over years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that on the performance side.
Yeah,
it goes both ways, right? On the political side of everything. But absolutely. I can imagine the fear your mother had raising black boys in and around Bronx and Harlem, and with all the stuff in the news. I mean, you get to 99. I was living in the Bronx. And, that situation with Amadou Diallo, 41 shots, which was a part of the public persona. So I think, for mothers and fathers, you want your kids to stay out of that kind of trouble.
Absolutely. When I got to 11th grade, got through 11th grade year, I was still underperforming. Definitely had everyone in my ear, from Dorset to Mr. Kelly to Miss G to like Miss McFarlane, like, anyone that could literally have a conversation with me had a conversation with me.
And I love the fact that you remember those names and those people were taking some time out to talk to you. I love that.
Yeah. So it was one of those things where I can't say there wasn't people that wanted me to succeed. But like I even tell the students that, I talk to now, even my own kids, I could only want but so much from you, but you have to want it for yourself. Because I could talk to you 50 million times. I could tell you 50. I can give you the blueprint. If you don't want to use it, or you don't feel within your heart you have the willingness to at least do something, it's not going to work out. And for me, 12th grade year was a mix of emotions. It was an up and down year. My dad had came home. It was a lot of animosity within the household. By then, it was kind of like my mom asking me, like, am I going to college? Am I not going to college? I ended up building like a really, really solid foundation with like UB. That was like my scapegoat to kind of like any practice we had after school, anything on Saturdays. I think we even practiced on Sundays if we could. Like we had to like literally talk to Thompson, was like, yo, can we just practice on Sundays? We would go down the steps and have practices outside. And I remember Mike and Terrell, like those guys, phenomenal guys, phenomenal steppers.
I remember Terrell Dillard really well, and Mike Gomes.
Yeah, Mike Gomes. Yeah. Always had a joke. Always, the Candy Man. That was Terrell. But great guys, and we built relationships. You know what I'm saying? And I think because I was always like one of those individuals that didn't speak on my problems or didn't put my problems on to somebody else, they probably didn't know half the stuff that I was going through. Just as the same. They might have been going through stuff, and we're kids, you know what I'm saying? So we're trying to figure it out the best way you can. You're talking about 17-year-old kids dealing with adult problems when we should be dealing with going to college.
Right.
And I remember, I'll never forget, it was the last day of the day of graduation. I believe I failed my English exam, and I needed to pass it. And I remember Miss Anderson, the track coach, she was giving out the cap and gowns and kind of like, I guess, answering whether people graduated or not. And I remember she told me, you didn't graduate. And I was just like, wow. And that was tough. Like at the time I had a girlfriend in the school. And I'm like saying to myself, like, okay, do I go to the graduation to support her or do I not show up? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And you're talking about like, I went to prom. I did all these activities. The only thing I didn't do was like senior trip or whatever, but I've done all these activities leading up to walking across the stage. And it was tough. And I remember sitting in my mom's living room, and me and my mom got into an argument about going to the ceremony. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna still go, because at the end of the day, it's not about me. Yeah, obviously you want to be selfish and you want to say like, yo, I should have been there too. But I just said, you know what, let me go, let me sit in the stands. And I think it didn't hit me like it didn't hit me until after the ceremony was done, and you see your peers and the people that literally have been through over 1,000 days in this school building, over 4 years, have seen you perform in front of shows, have laughed at your jokes in class, have, you know what I mean? Like you see all of that, and then like that, it's over. You know what I mean? And I think that's when it hit me, when people started coming out and, just saying like, wow, like they were surprised to see me there. You know what I mean? And I think
you made the right decision too, because I was in a very similar situation. Didn't graduate high school. I didn't go to my graduation, and wow. I think you made a good decision there to be a part of it, because it's a memory that you can't get back.
Absolutely, and I didn't get the girl, so it didn't work out. But it's okay, but I enjoyed the fact that I was there. I got to see the ceremony. And I think for me, that's where like my life into the real world began. And that's how I ended up kind of like just going into the real world and just kind of like saying like, look, let me get a job, let me secure myself and just figure out life, college.
So you had this situation where you didn't graduate on time, and how did you end up because eventually you end up at City College? Did you do some work at GED? How did that happen?
So I ended up working for a period of time. I worked for the library, the New York Public Library. Thank God I don't work there anymore, because I manipulated I was good with computers. So I was able to find like a whole college resume offline, do all these like nice little things that you can't do anymore, you know what I mean, and pass it along and get a city job. Look, a city job at that, right? So that's how I was able to get in. In 2002, 2003, I remember Thompson calling me. Like, he would call me all, when I had first left Randolph, he would always say, "Hey, Garcia, you coming back? You come back? You come back?" And I'd be like, "Nah." He'd be like, "You got to come back. You got to come back." And my biggest fear walking in the building is like the expectations of that question that everybody hates. "So what are you doing?" Or "What are you up to?" Or "How's life?" Or "How's college?" So those are the questions that I already knew walking into Randolph you was gonna face. So for me, it was like the more I could stay away, maybe people will either retire, move away, or just leave. You know what I mean? So it was like the longer you stay away from something, by the time you come back, nobody's there that remembers you. You know what I mean? School safety is no longer there, teachers no longer there, administration is no longer there. And I remember coming back in 2002, 2003. And Thompson was in his office, and Thompson is the type of person you just can't lie to. You just gotta you own your I don't know if I could curse, but you own your shit, and you move on from it. You know what I mean? So we had an honest conversation. I told him that I wasn't in school. I told him the things that I was doing. He kind of stressed the importance of going to get your GED and doing all these great things, and being able to kind of start your journey, because you're always going to be looking over your shoulder if you don't get the education. And I remember as Thompson is speaking, I'm focused on this female. So Thompson is talking on one end, right? But I'm not paying attention nowhere to Thompson, and I'm focused on this female. That female would be Shanae Morris, which is also a Randolph alum. Which was also a sisters only, which is also my ex-wife, which is also the
wow.
So Thompson inadvertently brought me to the school to help UB, and he ended up helping me with 2 kids. You know what I mean? So
nice.
like that came together. So you got to thank Thompson for all of this.
There's a lot of history in the SBI resource room there. Wow.
Yeah, it was always something in that room. You know what I mean? But it was definitely a room full of love. The photos it was a story that was told, and you could walk in there, and if you saw your photo on the wall, it's like you made it to the Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Like, because you have people that walk in there, they're like, "So you really haven't put my photo up yet? Like, where's my era?" And everybody's jockeying for that attention. You know what I mean? But when you walked in there and you don't have to say, "Oh, that's Cam." Yeah, but right above Cam, yeah, that's my era. Like, you can look at it and be like, "That's my era." Like, okay, like you've made it when you're on that wall. You know what I mean? That's like the Hall of Fame. So
yeah, it's an amazing thing, and Charles has always got an artistic touch in how he does things. Yeah. So it's a good feeling. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. So 2003 or somewhere around there, you make a decision, right, to continue your education. So what does that look like?
So my daughter was born in 2005, and okay. I said to myself, when looking at my daughter, how am I going to instill education into this child that I don't even have a high school diploma? You know what I mean? So it was at that point I made the decision, like, yo, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go get my GED. I had spoke to my oldest brother. At that time, he had already graduated from City. He had some resources that he had known about at Bronx Community College, which was Dr. O'Neill. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to speak to her. There's a program over there. You could definitely enlist. I'll get you started. And I remember the first time I walked in there, I kind of felt out of place. And I'm like, yo, I'm 24. I don't really want to be here. You know what I mean? But when I started seeing people walking at 40, 45, older than me, I was like, okay, well, this is not too bad. And I remember just staying in the classes, just following through, just being committed to the process and understanding, like, look, I don't know how long it's going to take for me to get this piece of paper, but I'm gonna get it. You know what I mean? And I took it. So with the program, you go through pre-GED, you graduate out of that, you go to GED, and then the college pays for you to take it. You take it twice a year. So I did the pre-GED program, graduated to the GED program. 6 months into the program, the overall program from the time I started, I ended up taking a test at Lehman College up on Bedford Park,
Yep.
and passing it on the first time. And didn't even realize that I passed the exam because the professor didn't want to tell us whether or not we passed it. So the state mails you a certificate that says GED. On the other side, it has your scores. So I'm still coming to class, and she keeps on, like, I noticed students just dropping off, and she's like, why you keep, like, she's like, Garcia, did you get anything yet? I'm like, no. And she was like, have you been checking your mail? And I'm like, no. And she was like, can you check your mail when you get home? So I get home that day. Mind you, Bronx community to my where I live is only like 3 blocks. So it's not like far, I get home that day, ask my mom for the mailbox key, old school West Indian. So they don't give you the key. They have the key. So I check the mail, right? Mind you, I'm 24 and still don't have a mailbox key, right? You gotta love it. So I check the mail. I see this envelope that has my name on it. So I open it and I'm reading that. I glance it over and it says, congratulations, you passed your New York State high school equivalency test. And I'm like, I passed? Like I'm like trying to read it again. I was like, oh shit, I passed. And I remember telling my mom, I was like, I passed. She was like, what was the score? So I was like, 2250. She was like, what did you need? So I said, you needed a 2250. She was like, what'd you get? I said, I got a 2280. She was like, and you passed? I'm like, yeah, dude, it don't matter. Like 30 points, a point over, I could have passed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Passing it, yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because if you look at the score breakdown on the back of it, I accelerated in history. So history, I scored like almost 200 points in that area. So when I decided to go to college, I said I'm gonna be a history major because I was like, that's the one interest that I knew would keep my attention. And I ended up getting that. You don't get a fancy ceremony or anything like that when you get your GED.
Yeah, I remember very well from taking my GED back in the 90s. I was gonna say GED wasn't a tough test. I don't think it's one of those things. I think people like, they don't realize they could probably, you're in 10th grade, 11th grade, you could probably easily pass the GED and be done with high school.
Actually,
but that's not publicly advertised too much.
Yeah. And it's funny because, you don't get this big ceremony. It's not a lot of hoopla around it. And I remember they was like, oh, if you want to go to the ceremony, you have the option. But at that point, I was just like, you know what? I'm okay. I'm not going to put on a cap and gown and, I'm good.
And celebrate this piece of paper, right?
Yeah, like I was like, I'm good. And I remember I went to enroll at Bronx Community because I was like so excited. I was like, yo, I'm gonna go get my college degree. I'm gonna go into the real world. I'm making tons of money. I'm gonna set up my daughter financially. And I remember I went to Bronx Community. I did 2 remedial classes. So when I came in academically, because I came in with a GED, you got to do remedial within English and remedial within math. You have to do that, pass out, and then you could take credited courses. And I remember doing my first semester right after I finished, and I never went back. I walked out of Bronx Community and was just like,
why did you do that?
I don't think I was ready for college. As much as the pressure was put on me to go to college. I mean, you're talking about my oldest brother, City College, Raphael, master's from University of Albany. My little brother graduated in Bronx Community, and now he's an engineer. So you're talking about those 3. My parents are high school graduates, so we're all first generation college-bound kids. I just felt like I was doing my work thing. I was making great money. At least what I thought was great money. My bills is paid. My credit is fine. I don't have any debt. You know what I mean? So for me, I was okay. Like I don't feel that I was doing any harm to anybody. I didn't, I was.
Yeah, I get it.
Just living. You know what I mean? I would fast forward. So that was 10 years, a block of 10 years that from the time that I graduated in 2004 till 2015 that I had not walked into college. So 2015, I walked onto a college campus, back to Bronx Community College. I had started working for the DOE in 2015, and I remember the principal at the school at the time, Sharif Rucker. He said to me, he was like, "Yo, you're so articulate, and you know, you come."
And how did you start working at the DOE and what role?
So I was doing IT,
Mm-hmm.
New York Public Library, and a job had opened up because the IT person had left to relocate out of state. So
how did you get into IT in the first place?
It was something that just kind of happened within the library. So I started within like entry level positions within the library, started as a page, then moved over to telecom, which is telecommunication. Then I was like a field operative. So it's kind of like I moved around in different sectors. And then I ended up at Lincoln Center.
You stayed consistent with it, right?
Yeah. So then it was like one of those things where it's like you always had that little jewel, and I knew with IT you didn't really need college, you just more needed certificates and you just needed the know-how. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's one of those things too, you know, and I see it time and time again, and this is a big word to the wise for folks. Certificates are great, you know, they're great to add on to the resume, LinkedIn, if you're using all that kind of stuff, but I have definitely been up against folks where they got certificates on stuff, but they don't know how to run stuff, right? And so the experience is really the big deal. So if you're looking to get into that kind of career, getting the internship, apprenticeship with the right person might be the better use of the time than the certificate itself. Right. On the other side of that coin, the paperwork, the resume, the certificates do help you get your foot in the door, which I think was part of your getting your foot in the door with the New York Public Library to begin with, right? Just being conscious of that stuff, which is something I think you probably got a little bit from your Randolph experience and working with Charles, right?
Yeah. So it's like, you know, doing that for 15 years, working for the library for 15 years, it was one of those things where stepping out of your comfort zone. And I know I didn't need any college. So I was like, you know, I'm good. I'll move over. There'll be a lateral move from one city sector to another. And it was cool, like just being able to move over. But my principal at the time, the one that hired me, he was like very like a challenging individual. He was just like, look, I'm gonna let you work here for a year, but you got to go to college. I was like, dude, I don't want to go to college. Like, you know, we struggled, like we literally butted heads for like the good better part of like a year. And one person that I know that I could always seek advice from is Charles Thompson. And he was getting ready for the showcase in 2016, that spring, 2016. It was getting ready for the spring showcase. And I remember going to Randolph, and he was like, hey, what's going on? And he was like, you here to help UB? And I was like, I just need some advice. And he was like, all right, give me a second. And we went to his office, and we had a conversation, and I told him, you know, what the gripe was. And he was like, well, why don't you want to go to college? And I told him, I was like, you know, I'm 34. I feel out of place. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Like, it was just so many different things. I was just, you know, Jekyll and Hyde type situation. And he was like, no, you're a smart guy. He was like, why don't you at least give it a chance? And I was just like, that's the one commonality that everybody kept on saying, like from my parents to Sharif to Thompson. It was like, give it a chance, give it a chance, give it a chance. And I remember the last person that I spoke to was my mom. And she was sitting on the couch, and I told her, I was like, you know, I'm gonna enroll in school. And she was just like, through the roof. Like you would have thought she hit the lotto when I said that. You know what I mean? Because being that middle child and being that one that you always feel forgotten, you don't think that your parents, I'm not saying that they don't care about that, but it's just like, it's not a degree. It's just like, I'm just going to go to college. You know what I'm saying? It was like, I didn't do anything yet. I just told you I'm going to go back. And the excitement on her face was like priceless. And I remember just going to walking in and having to sit down, and at 34 you're looking at yourself like, I was 2 seconds to leaving. 3 students walked in. I want to say anywhere between the ages of like 17 to 25, right? And I'm like, this shit ain't like. I'm in my mind. I'm like, I gotta leave. I gotta leave. I gotta figure out a way to just get up and leave, right? And then this guy, and he's like 50 years old. So I'm like, why are you sitting next to me? He was like, oh, I'm a student. I was like, oh. So for me, that guy that walked in, I was like,
Just saved your college career there.
he could have been Wilbert for all I know. Like he's the one that kind of saved me to stay in that seat, and I'm glad I did. And it was a host of people that helped me through the process. Tiana Mellon, Sharif Rucker, Charlotte Pope, Richard Baptist, to Professor Haley, Professor Woodard, Professor Lewis, Dr. Keith Thompson. So there's not one person that I can honestly say that didn't help me through the process. Obviously, I had to sit, do the hours, and do the time in class, but it was the greatest reward. And graduating at an accelerated pace. I didn't do any shortcuts. I took 7-8 classes per semester, never took a summer off, never took a winter off, went through school, because everybody's going to question, like, well, how did you get all the way to this part in such a short period of time?
Well, yeah. How did you manage that load?
It was, you're talking about going through a divorce, having a kidney disease, being diagnosed.
Wow.
And just mentally just putting yourself in a frame of mind, like it has to get done. You know what I mean? I could either drag this out and do 2 classes per semester. I could take 7. And being a baseball coach and going to Randolph to help out with community service. You know what I mean? So it's like your accent of all of those moving parts. But I don't
know how I'm trying to think about like how you fit it all in with the time, the classwork. It's crazy.
I mean, I literally said when I went to Bronx Community College, I went there because I wanted to complete what I started. You know what I mean? And my dad recently passed away, which has been tough on the family as a whole.
My condolences. Sorry to hear that.
And watching my parents have an opportunity to watch me graduate, and my dad being able to see me graduate, even though it was never like I know he knows that I've graduated with my bachelor's and my master's and all this other stuff, and I'm gonna get another master's, whatever. But to have him there in the actual flesh and see that, and we have a photo together. I cherish that photo. You know what I mean?
That's amazing.
For me, that regardless of what, him crying and always telling me, like, you know, his parents never cared about education. That's why he pushed us so hard. And he was just proud of the fact that I was able to figure it out. Is a true testament to everything that went on. You know what I mean? So I'm grateful of the people that's around me. I'm grateful for the village. It truly takes a village. You know what I mean? And you know, I don't forget those people, because without them, I wouldn't be here today. You know what I mean? And without Thompson and UV, that wouldn't have got me through those critical stages in high school that, you know, if I wasn't at that May showcase, who knows where I might have been. You know what I mean? So you got to put in perspective the things that sometimes when you think you know it all, you know nothing. And it's life. You know what I mean? And it's okay to make mess ups, but how do you not go too far left or too far right, but just try to stay on that narrow path? And that's what I tell my kids that I work with, and even my own kids. My journey, however I got here today, was tough. I don't want you to have to go on that tough journey. So I could employ you the right way to go about it, but you have to essentially make that decision. And I just hope that you take away something from it. You know what I mean?
So I want to go back to the original question I was asking you after you were telling me, you know, what you're doing now. What's driving you? I mean, the fact that you are able to do that course load, the fact that you're committing yourself to the school counseling track, the fact that you've come back year after year to help UB, what drives you in your service to community, in your search to better yourself, to be a school counselor and do more of this kind of work? What drives you?
I think it's just like me and my dad was so close, yet so alike that we tend to butt heads. And I know he only wanted the best for me, and I know he would have poured tons of resources into me and my brothers. But he always used to tell us, like, if you could give back, give back. You know what I mean? And I think growing up with that mindset of like, if I used to watch my dad coach, and then literally after the game, like if he had $5 in his pocket, literally find a way to make that $5 spread to like 30 kids, so that all of them could get something to eat. Or, growing up, we were homeless at a period of time. You know what I mean? And for 3 years, it was tough. Just finding things to eat and places to go. And I could tell you about like shelters that wasn't even shelters to this day. And, growing up in the environment which we did grow up in, it was nothing but love and nothing but warmth. And we came from very modest means, and we still are in very modest means. But my parents always just say, never look down on anyone. If you have it to give, give it, and always pay it forward. You know what I mean? And for me, that's what motivates me every day. You know what I mean? Me and my dad, the only thing that we carry is the last name of Garcia. You know what I mean? And I knew how hard he struggled to be great. You know what I mean? And he always used to say, like, I want you guys to be better than me. That way your kids can be better than you. And then that way your kids could be better than them. And, I love my kids. I love working with kids. And the more I could, instill in them to just be great, then I feel that I'm doing my job,
I love that, man. I feel like we're kindred spirits in that respect. I feel like every day is about helping, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old me that was making some of those decisions, not lining up what I'm doing right now with 20 years from now, both for myself and for, whoever I was going to eventually affect, birth, all that kind of stuff, with family. It's interesting to see how it plays out in my children and plays out in my siblings' children, the craziness of, the opportunities, the roads not taken. You feel like you have this knowledge of like, man, like you were saying, the hard road, you don't have to go down that road, but people are still choosing that. And so the mission is trying to get as many people to understand, like, hey, it doesn't have to be that hard, right? You can open some doors of opportunity for yourself. It doesn't have to be a mountain to climb. It could be just a hill, right? It could just be a little bit easier, right? You can make it easier on yourself. I want to say congratulations to you, man, on getting the work done. I'm envious of you. I'll be that maybe 45 or 50-year-old that's making somebody else feel good about being a 30-year-old in college class when I eventually get down to it, because I it's one of those goals that I have with 4 children. You got the 2. So Ayana and Michael, right? Your kids, they got to be really proud of you. I'm proud of you as well, having a long history with you. I love the work that you do. I really appreciate the work you do coming back with UB. Congratulations on getting not only the bachelor's and the master's, and then I'll say congratulations in advance on this next master's that you're working on. What does the future hold for you? What are the plans? And then if you can also tell folks the best way to reach out to you, because I know you're not on LinkedIn. Usually I got people on here. What's the best way to reach you, and who would you love to contact you?
So right now, I would be remiss if I say the future is about me, but right now I'm working on COVID has really taken a toll on my daughter. So definitely working just to get her through 11th grade, which has been difficult because obviously with COVID, everything has been more of a mental health struggle. And I know for her, it's definitely been a struggle academically, but she's continued to fight and continue to overperform, and she's an overachiever. So I appreciate it. So She'll be in high school, 12th grade next year. And now we're looking at colleges for her to be going away. So my focus right now is on her. A little bit, my son is going into first grade. So what that looks like in his first year in the school building. So him getting acclimated with that and being around his peers and kind of seeing what that looks like. I'm interested for that and excited for him because he hasn't been able to be in that space. So those are my two focus. I people could always say like, you got this and you got this and you got this. Yeah, academics is equally important. I want to continue to move up in my career and I want to continue to strive to be great. I think the big thing for me is just definitely finishing out my school counseling program. I graduate next June, but any principals that's listening, I'll be able to start working as of August of this year. I have my 30 credits, and we all know you only need your 30 credits under New York State law, which are practicum hours. So I'm gonna plug that. If you definitely want to reach out to me, it's 80_poetry. I am on IG. I don't post too many stories, but I am on there. So if you definitely want to reach out, you could definitely shoot me a friend's request. That's 80_poetry. No funny way of spelling poetry. But you could definitely reach out to me there. Cam, Mr. Thompson, they definitely have ways of getting in contact with me. So it's definitely been a pleasure. I'm humbled to be a part of this. And yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, man. You got such an inspiring story, Rodney. Thank you for doing this with me. I can't wait to see what the future holds for you. And who knows, maybe Mr. Fanning, the current principal of Randolph, be reaching out to you, continue the Randolph story. Who knows? Thank you so much for doing this with me today. Please stay in touch. I love hearing your story. I feel like we got so much in common, from just a wider range of things. So really enjoyed hearing your story. Looking forward to staying in touch with you. I'm going to let you have the last word and say goodbye to everybody, and I will play us off here.
Thank you guys for tuning in. It's truly been a pleasure. I hope that if you took away anything from this story today that I shared out, just know that it's definitely not where you start, but where you are going to finish. And my story's not done, so I won't say that it's over, but definitely just because you start the race in last doesn't necessarily mean you have to stay there. So definitely continue to be great, continue to be successful, continue to support Randolph, SBI, Cameron, Mr. Thompson. Definitely doing a lot of great things over there. I love to continue to be a part of that, and any way possible that I could help, definitely reach out and I'll be there.